In the year 1066, on a narrow strip of English coastline, a single battle is said to have changed everything. England fell, France rose. That is the simple version, and it is wrong. Because what followed was not conquest, or peace, or resolution. It was 8 centuries of unfinished business. On this channel, we don't tell history as a sequence of dates and victories. We trace the pressure beneath events, the systems that outlive kings, the decisions that seem small, but refuse to stay contained. This is one of those stories. This isn't just about why England and France fought so many wars. It's about why they never truly stopped, why treaties failed, why alliances decayed, why even centuries of exhaustion could not erase the rivalry, because the real conflict was not over land, it was over legitimacy. And legitimacy, once questioned, does not fade quietly. To understand the Anglo-French wars, we have to discard a modern assumption. We assume nations behave like nations, that borders are fixed, that loyalty flows neatly from crown to country. None of this existed in medieval Europe. Power was personal, land was inherited, married into or seized through custom as much as force. A king could be sovereign in one place and a vassal in another. And nowhere was this contradiction more dangerous than across the English Channel. In 1066, William of Normandy conquered England. But William was not just a king, he was also a duke, a French duke, owing fealty to the King of France for his lands in Normandy. This created a paradox that never resolved. The King of England ruled England outright, but in France, he was technically subordinate. On paper, this looked manageable. In practice, it was intolerable, because the English crown now held vast territories in France, Normandy, Anjou, Aquitaine, often more land than the French king himself controlled directly. France was a kingdom in name, but fragmented in reality. England was smaller, but more centralized, better organized, more administratively coherent. This imbalance seeded resentment, fear, and opportunity. The French crown feared encirclement by its own vassals. The English crown feared dependence on a foreign monarch for legitimacy. Neither side could resolve this without weakening itself. So the tension remained, not explosive, persistent, like a fault line under a city. The system hardened over generations. English kings learned that their wealth came not from France, but from England's taxation, trade, and growing bureaucracy. French kings learned that survival depended on slowly reclaiming authority, piece by piece, from overmighty nobles. Every marriage, every inheritance dispute, every succession crisis reopened the same question: who truly had the right to rule? And when legitimacy is unclear, war becomes a form of argument. The rivalry might have remained a chronic condition rather than a series of wars if not for one decision in 1328. When the French King Charles IV died without a male heir, the Capetian dynasty ended. The French nobility chose Philip of Valois, a cousin, to take the throne. But there was another claimant, Edward III of England. Edward's claim came through his mother, Isabella, daughter of the French King Philip IV. By blood, Edward was closer than Philip of Valois. France rejected him. They invoked custom Salic law, the principle that the crown could not pass through the female line. On its surface, this was legal reasoning. In reality, it was survival. Accepting Edward would have meant placing France under a king who already ruled England. The paradox would have consumed the realm. Edward initially accepted the decision. He paid homage to Philip for his French lands, but the logic of the system would not allow peace, because Edward was now a king, kneeling to another king, and Philip was a king ruling over a man who could plausibly claim his crown. Mutual suspicion became policy. Trade disputes escalated. Naval skirmishes multiplied. Alliances hardened. And in 1337, Edward did something that changed the nature of European warfare. He formally claimed the throne of France, not as rhetoric, as strategy. This was not a reckless declaration, it was calculated. Edward knew he could not conquer France outright, but he could destabilize it. Divide it, force the French crown to fight on multiple fronts. The 100 Years' War began not as a war of conquest, but as a war of legitimacy. What followed was not constant battle, but cycles of violence and restraint. England's advantage was not manpower. France had more people, more land, more resources. England's advantage was discipline. English kings invested in logistics, contracts, and command structures. They paid soldiers wages instead of relying on feudal obligation. They organized campaigns around supply lines and objectives, not seasonal raiding. And most importantly, they weaponized patience. The English longbow did not win battles by itself. It worked because English commanders chose to reign carefully, forced the French to attack, and resisted the urge to pursue glory. At Crécy, at Poitiers, at Agincourt, the pattern repeated. French knights charged because honor demanded it. English forces waited because survival required it. These were not victories of courage over cowardice, they were victories of system over impulse. But even here, England could not convert success into resolution. Victories drained resources, occupations bred resistance, and France learned, slowly, painfully. French kings reformed taxation, centralized authority, built standing forces loyal to the crown. They avoided pitched battles, focused on attrition, recovered territory methodically. The war shifted. England's early advantages evaporated. Its domestic politics fractured. Parliament demanded accountability for endless war. And then, in the 15th century, something unexpected happened. France unified, not emotionally, administratively. The French crown emerged stronger than it had ever been. The English position collapsed. By 1453, England had lost almost all its continental possessions. The 100 Years' War ended, but the rivalry did not, because the war had solved territory, not trust. England withdrew. France consolidated, but the underlying dynamic remained. England feared a powerful France across the Channel. France feared English interference in continental politics, so the conflict evolved. No longer dynastic claims, but balance of power. No longer medieval levies, but professional armies and navies. In the 16th century, England fought France in Italy. In the 17th, they clashed through proxies and coalitions. In the 18th, they fought global wars in North America, India, the Caribbean. The battlefield widened, but the logic stayed the same. Prevent dominance, preserve autonomy, deny legitimacy. Even when they allied against Spain, against Germany, the alliance was conditional, temporary. Trust never fully materialized, because the memory of centuries does not vanish with treaties. The Anglo-French rivalry shaped the modern world. It drove the development of taxation, navies, and state capacity. It exported European conflict across the globe. It defined colonial borders, languages, and institutions. Most importantly, it taught both nations a lesson they never forgot. Power must be managed, not assumed. Legitimacy must be reinforced, not inherited. And rivals who share history rarely share peace. By the time the two nations finally stood together in the 20th century, it was not because the rivalry had ended. It was because something more dangerous had replaced it. The Anglo-French wars were never about hatred. They were about structure, about systems that trapped generations into conflict long after the original cause had faded. History often feels like chaos, but when you look closely, patterns emerge. And once you see them, they are impossible to ignore. This is a very extensive topic, and it is difficult to cover everything in just one video. Additional reading links are provided in the description below. If you want to explore another rivalry, empire, or turning point shaped by decisions rather than destiny, tell us in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, calm, deliberate, and grounded in the forces that actually move history, consider subscribing, because the past is not finished with us yet.